guys, it's Steve.
And I'm Sean.
And we're here today with Working Class Zeros. This is a show that's going to come to you monthly through Bass Musician Magazine, as long as they let us do it.
Yep.
But we're going to talk about what it's like to be a working class musician, the guys who are in the trenches at night and working the day gig during the day. So we're going to kind of come to that with like, what does it mean? Where does it go? And we know a lot of you guys already are out there doing this. But sometimes it's nice to know that other people are having the same struggles, because not everybody's on that A-level gig all the time. We're making it. Sometimes you hit that A-level gig and then it's over, and then you're back in the trenches and doing the the church gigs,
the grind,
the garage gig, the bar gig, the club gig, the gigs where you don't make a ton of money, but you make enough that you hope to have gas to get you back to the next gig to do the same thing over again.
The one where you wonder, if I say no, am I going to have enough to cover my night at the end of the month?
Yeah. So really, I mean, because I think the reality is that we see all these shows and we see all these guys talking about, living, it's like baseball fantasy camp. We have a lot of guys who are out there that are not always forthcoming about what they have to do to make those ends meet. And of course, you can do music and you can bust and really, work hard to try to do 9 different things to make ends meet at the end of the month. But sometimes, the reality is that you have to have a day gig.
Right.
And that day job might be the thing that actually keeps your family and you afloat while you enjoy the music.
Sure.
So, and that's a big thing. So that's where we're coming from. So in this segment today, we have 3 different topics. Two are the main ones, and one we're going to repeat every time we do this. Mm-hmm. But we're going to start off today with talking about
the day gig.
The day gig, yeah. So what does it mean?
Yeah. Well, like for me, like when I think about it, just like a day gig, like it's about the introduction. I think the introduction is a big part of it. For like when you go and you meet somebody, it's like, oh, so what do you do? Like a lot of times, like if you like focus a lot on your music, you want to say you're a musician, but like, does it really pay the bills? Does it really kind of like cover all the expenses? It's like, all right, so you have a day job, you have something that helps supplement your income, and that could be anything. It could be like an office gig, it could be like a delivery driver, it could be working retail, it could be all kinds of sorts of different things. But like, I guess it doesn't really define who you are. But like, as long as you understand that it's helping you achieve your goal.
And I think there's no shame in the day gig either. And I think as musicians, somehow, somewhere along the line, we felt it's almost like, it's like shameful to admit that you have a day job, that you had to work something else to make this music thing happen. And the reality is that, I know a lot of people that work in wedding bands, and that's their job, their full-time job, and they hate the music they play. So it's like it always comes down to this: do you get the day job where you play the music you love and hopefully make ends meet with it? Because the reality is, for most of us, our original bands don't actually go anywhere, right?
Right.
They're food for the soul, but they don't put food in the pantry at all, right? And that's kind of the thing. So it's like it comes down to, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? Do you want to do the music you love, or do you want to make the money? And that's where that gig triangle kind of comes together, right? And we'll talk more about that. But the day gig there's no shame in that. And I've known a lot of major musicians,
sure,
like Damien Erskine, who talked about like working at coffee shops.
Yeah, they're more quiet about it because it has that there's a stigma that kind of surrounds it of like, oh, you're not really making it as a musician. You're this super talented player and whatnot, but you're not making ends meet just by playing music alone. And if you try to do that, sometimes it turns into like having to work 7 days a week. You're putting in full days, if not doubles of like lengths of days, because maybe you're teaching all day and then you're going playing a gig that night. You're not getting home until like 3:00 in the morning, and then the next morning it starts all over again for you. Maybe like 10 a.m. when you start your next student. Maybe it's noon, but it just doesn't ever stop. And like, oh, I'm making it as a musician, but are you really living? Are you enjoying your time playing music, or is this now the only like facet you have in order to complete the bills?
And that reality too, I think you have to kind of like what you just stated there was somebody who's like in their late 20s, early 30s,
yes,
who doesn't have a family. Yeah. So most of us, and hopefully you have a family. You find somebody out there and you have a family, because living your life alone is sad.
Sure.
So if you have a family, you're raising children, or pets, or hopefully you have children, because we need everybody needs one to have children. Or some people don't, but if you do that, you can't do the 24/7 thing anyway. You can't go from one gig, your day gig, to your night gig, and then hope to maintain a relationship and have well-rounded children or have a family.
It's not feasible to be present in social events and have a life, and then also have to do that grind of 24/7 like you're stating, and I think a lot of us tried doing that at some point. I know for sure that I tried doing that. And doing that, it was I was teaching 5 days a week, if not 6 days a week. I was working at a church. I was gigging 4 to 5 times a week. I literally pick up every gig I possibly could. Even the gigs I couldn't stand the people or the music. I was like, I just need to make sure that I'm providing. That was my main concern. And I was married and I had 2 young kids. And I realized this is not. I actually was married and then had 1 kid. And then once I had 2 kids, I was like, this is not feasible for me anymore. I had to take a step back and get that day job. And I'll admit, the initial kind of transition was kind of weird. It felt a little strange to kind of put my focus into something else, and then keeping the music something I was passionate about. But then eventually it felt right. I found that good balance that hey, this is helping me do what I want to do, and I can enjoy my time.
Well, I think there's no foul in that. I mean, I think when you look at Wes Montgomery worked as a plumber's assistant, Charles Mingus worked as in between gigs. He was working as a mailman and was a photographer. I think you can find ways to make that passion work in both ways. And I think that's where we almost get tunnel vision as musicians. Mm-hmm. We think, hey, if I'm not only doing music, I am less than. And I think the reality with this, and I keep saying that over and over again, I think that there's no reason that music can't enter into your other world. I mean, I work for Apple as a creative pro, and I'm constantly thinking about music and talking about music at work, and when I am there, it's it just fuels the other elements of that, and I'm able to be flexible. And that's the other thing, is having a job that's flexible with you too, and they're able to work with you on those concepts. And being a creative pro at Apple means that I spend my day talking about video, music, and stuff like that. So I'm able to kind of cross that passion of what I love in music into this other job that allows me to expand that. So there's ways to be multifaceted without saying, okay, well, I feel really depressed because I'm not making this. And I think I see that a lot, and I see that with a lot of people, because it's almost like it's like a fallacy. It's almost like the pornography of music, right? You have this fake world of these fake things, of these people that you see this fake life. It's almost like the Instagram effect, right? Mm-hmm. Where you see these people living these lives, and you only get a snapshot of it at the best. You don't see the guy out there hustling, playing all these other jobs, or figuring out this other source of income to make those things happen. And I can tell you, I know a lot of musicians that have multiple sources of income, but they promote the one that we see because it's good. I mean, hey, if you can do both, if you can figure out how to back that up and have that day gig, I think that's incredible. Sure. Especially when you can tie in your passion into both and have that experience. We all can't be Victor Wooten, but Victor Wooten has a camp. Victor Wooten teaches. He's at Berkeley.
Well,
this is ways to make that.
This is what you're talking about, being multifaceted and just being able to understand you need to have other revenue streams versus just gigging, because your body eventually will give out and not want to be able to stand there for 3, God forbid, 4-hour gigs, and then you're beating up your back, your shoulders, your hands, everything just slowly starts slowing down and getting weaker, and you're just this is really hard now. It becomes a tedious thing, and you don't want it to get to the point where you become jaded either. Of I don't want to play gigs because it's a pain in the ass or this and whatever. So yeah.
Well, I think we all go through that period too, right? So we go and we play a gig, or we fall in love with the style of music and we go fully into it, and then eventually we start to hate it, right? Because it becomes this full encompassing thing, and then it's we start to hate that, or we hate the job, or we hate something else, because when it sucks up too much of our life and our passion. So you have that, it's work-life balance, right?
Right.
And even no matter if it's the day job or the music gig or whatever you're doing, you have to have that work-life balance. Now, this kind of brings us into this next topic, which is the gig triangle. So if you are working the day job, you want to make sure that the gigs you do get make sense, right?
Yeah. You say yes to the ones that matter.
So let's talk about this. So there is this ongoing I've had this conversation. Actually, a friend of mine who owned Bass Specialties down in Philly for years. I used to teach there, and he was the one who introduced me to the concept of the bass or the gig triangle. And I think you've heard about it too.
Oh yeah, there's literally memes and charts about it all over the internet now. So it's everyone's aware of like what this gig triangle is. But if you're not,
yeah, I want to give a shout out to Glenn Marazzo from Bass Specialties. he still sets up shop at Gerald Veasley's Bass Boot Camp every year, which is awesome. But Glenn is the person who kind of opened my eyes to this, and it is a thing. So the gig triangle. The gig triangle consists of what?
Well, it's good music, number one, good pay, and good people. So those two, and the thing is, when it comes to the gig triangle, you can only ever have two at best of the three. You can never have all three.
Hopefully you get two at best.
Yeah, probably your best scenario is you're going to have two out of the three. Most cases it's probably just going to be one, but you never want to have zero, and you'll never have three.
Well, that's when you know when the gig is garbage, right? Yeah. It's time to quit. So the three things, like Sean said, I almost said Glenn. Yeah. The three things that Sean said was, it's the pay, it's the music, it's the people. So if you have two of those, of any of those three, either the people are great and the music is great, but the pay's garbage, you can stick it out, right? If the music is good and the pay is good and the people are rough, then you still stick it out. But if the music is great, the people are awful, and the pay is terrible, eventually that gig becomes awful. Yeah. And you come to the point where you're like, I don't want to load my SVT in my car because it's heavy and I hate this. And sure, I like the songs we're playing, but it just isn't, it's just a lot of work. And it's almost too much work for what it's worth, because if it is a 3-hour gig, and let's be honest, a 3-hour gig is actually a 5-hour gig.
Right.
Because by the time you get there, you load in, you load out after you play it. If you have a 3-hour gig or a 4-hour gig sometimes.
Yeah, 6 hours.
Yeah, so 6 hours and that pay. And what do we think is good pay? We're talking about this like you got $150, $200 on a gig. For a 5 or 6 hour gig that's not that great anymore.
Yeah, no, it's really boiled
it's
down
minimum
to
wage.
Yeah,
you're working for minimum wage. So the money element of that is always kind of questionable. Now, this is the working class part of it, because if there's guys out there that are that B level and A level that are making, a couple grand a gig, or maybe you're making $1,000 a gig, you guys are doing it better. You're feeling it a little bit better. You probably also have somebody loading in, loading out for you too.
Sure.
We're at this working class zeros. We're loading in. You're your own roadie.
Right. You're doing all that, and also it's like when you look at your the triangle, it's like your triangle. When you look at it, there's going to be certain things that you focus more on than others. Like maybe for you, like you don't really care. Like you're fine with doing like just cover band stuff, and you don't really care about like having to play great music. You're just like, I just like playing music people want to hear. Whatever, good enough. And hey, like if you have a day job, like the day gig, maybe you're not too focused on like the money aspect of things, but like maybe you're really heavily focused on like being around good people, like having being, because like to me, like if you have a good day job and you just enjoy playing music that people want to hear, then the main focus is going to be around being around good people. Because if you have to be around crummy personalities, egotistical, like prima donnas, anything like that, where it's like these people, like they think they're don't stink, when that kind of happens, it really kind of like puts a damper on the entire gig scenario for me at least. And it's like, I don't want to be around them. I don't want it's not fun. It ruins the experience. And if it's not fun, what am I doing? Because like I'm supposed to be there having a good time playing music, and getting paid, but like now it's like, okay, get rid of that. Now like maybe it's good music and good pay and crummy people. Yeah, like he's like Steve was saying, like you want to like I was called Ian from like then maybe you stick that one out because you're hitting 2 out of 3. So I did that for a couple of years with a cover band where the people were crummy, they had bad personalities, but I was gigging.
Don't want your input either, right?
Yeah, none of my input, but like still with all that, it was like I was gigging 5 days a week. I was making decent pay doing that, and the music. It was like enriching for like a musician, but like, did people really want to hear it? I don't know. But like, at least I was getting paid and I was playing music that I enjoyed doing, but I played it with crummy people.
And I think that's the way it breaks down. Like I have the new standard, which barely makes money. I mean, I enjoy the people I play with. Mm-hmm. I like the music we play because it's such a hodgepodge of whatever we want to do. Yep. Because the money isn't there. So it's like, if you get the place to hire you and they're open to the idea of you playing there and they let you kind of decide what the music is you want, then the money doesn't need to be great. It's like, okay, well, it's a sucky gig, but you have the choice then too. If you have that day gig, you have that choice. It kind of ties back to that first thing, whether or not you want to do that job. Because if you don't have that, sometimes you have to take it. And that's like, okay, well, I need to make rent. I need to do this job. I hate the job. And the people treat me like crap. Then it becomes just a job. It's another job. So you're trading in one job for another job with your instrument. Now I find that, and I've had a lot of students over the years, and I've told them over and over again, you don't want to make it your job. You want to make it your passion, your love. When it becomes your job, you're going to hate your instrument. You're going to hate what you do, and you're going to move away from it. And that's really hard to deal with, because if that is your expression, it's your outlet. If you start to hate your expression and your outlet, that leads to other issues. That leads to mental health problems, I feel like. So it's like...
It can be like depression and things like that, yeah.
Absolutely. So the gig triangle is important, the day gig, and understanding how to work around your passion. I mean, and to be honest, people throughout history have had to work, they had to work, different jobs to support their art. Whether you worked for a king, whether you worked for the church, whether you worked for somebody to do your art, you found somebody to pay for that, or you found a way to make money out of what you were doing. But if you have a champagne taste on a beer budget,
it ain't gonna work out.
No. So you have to really kind of like think about the triangle. And sometimes, if the triangle, if you are, it is March, and maybe you find that pot of gold at the end of that rainbow, and you find that the money, the gig, and the people, and it just aligns, and you have this magical experience, and you're able to hold on to it. Because that's the other thing, is those are hard to hold on to.
Well, think about it this way: like how many years did you put in before you got like your first real gig? Like one, and when I say real gig, I'm not saying just like bar gig. I'm talking about like, okay, like full theater, like like hundreds, if not like 1,000 plus people, like a real tour, anything like that. Like, there's so much work and time that goes in behind that, and you never see any of that. When it comes to like these, like the facades of like the Instagram people, when like they're out there like, oh, they just like pick one day, just got picked like out of the litter, like you are going to be magic, and then like that's it. Like no, like that's not how any of this works. Like there's a lot of time, and again, like there is some like networking. There is like who and being able to communicate well with other people. Like your personality is a lot of who you're selling when it comes to that type of stuff with getting gigs. Which is probably another topic.
Absolutely.
We'll get into another
we'll
time.
Talk about that one too.
But like still, like that's something that to keep in mind, and all of that is what you're not seeing when someone has that really high end gig, making good money with musicians that you would like die to want to play with.
Yeah, we all have that dream band that we would love to join if we had the opportunity, and and sure, that would be great. But in the meantime, because you're working class zeros, we're all buying our own instruments still. We're all getting our own stuff, and you're all loading in your own amps.
Yep.
At this point, what we want to do is we just want to appreciate what you're doing. At least if you figured out a way to make it work and you're enjoying what you're doing. I think that's really where I wanted to go with this. Was
absolutely
that there is no shame in working the day gig. There's no shame in having the band that you enjoy the people with, you enjoy the music, and the money's trash. Hey, if you like the music and the music fulfills you, and you have that other source of income that's getting you through, and your wife is, or a significant other is like
appreciative
or
supportive.
Supportive. I think is okay with you being out when you're out. I think there's value in that too, and it's just kind of finding your center and understanding where you are is okay.
Yeah.
We don't have to envy what other people are doing, because a lot of times that's not real anyway. So just being able to understand, because it's a snapshot into their reality. You don't know what that looks like, and I don't know, and we all assume, right?
Yeah, it's kind of finding like your own idea of like what success means to you, especially when it comes to like gigging. I have like a regular kind of house gig downtown, like where I play with like a couple of my buddies with Exploratory Bite. When we go and play, it's just a good time, good cover songs and whatnot. We have a great time playing it. The money's like pretty average, but like we're all friends and we like playing these songs, so it's good music, good friends. the rest of it kind of falls into place. And to me, that's successful. That's fun. People stay and like we retain an audience. I find that to be successful.
Yeah. I think it was. It might have been a guy named Kevin Safira, who's a pretty well-known drummer. He's played with everybody.
Yep.
And I think I asked him years ago. I think it was him. It might have been somebody else, but it might have been actually. I think it was the drummer from Peter Noon, actually, who was like in the original Sins. They were a local band here. Drummer went and started touring with Peter Noon, and the Peter Noon gig was like cruises and like things that like over. You know, when you think about like artists who make it. They've kind of finished that element of like that high-end touring, but they're still out there. It's like the Cyndi Lauper tour, right? Oh, you got a gig with Cyndi Lauper, you're going to play some places. You're not going to do stadiums. But I asked him the one time, I said, you know, did he make it? Did he make it? And he said, well, it all depends on what your interpretation of making it means. What is making it? You know, does making it mean that you have a Ferrari in your driveway? Does it mean that you own your house outright? Does it mean that they're flying you like to YouTube, they're flying you to gigs, you know, you're going out with like the Who, like John Button's gig. That doesn't, you know, that's awesome. If you get that, feel blessed, right?
Sure.
But the reality is that most of us are going to be here and we got to figure out how to make this work for us, right?
Yep. Feel good about what you're doing. Yeah,
absolutely. And again, don't have any shame in any part of what you do to create your art. Whether it's the day job, whether it's you own rental properties or you do something else, or you know you paint lines in the road. Hey, that's awesome, because those stories. I mean, that's the other thing that we neglect is that the people who are struggling, that are working, that are figuring out how to play at night, are the ones with the stories. They're the ones that have the experience. So when you hear those tragedies or those hardships through their instruments, they're living. They're living. The kid who sits in his basement and all of a sudden gets plucked and goes and is, you know, flying around the world with Taylor Swift, you know, right. They haven't lived, they haven't worked. They, you know, if that's their story, they don't have anything to say, you know. And again, this is my personal opinion. I don't know them, but I feel like the guy who spent the 10,000 hours working on his instrument while working a job, while taking care of the kids, while doing this, as an artist, not even as a musician, but as an artist, you paid your dues. You got something to say. I mean, you know, when you think, like, I think about like, there's a number of musicians that have had to like work and had hardships and like, you know, you think of like, you know, all the blues guys that like suffered and like, you know, they had to make it through. That's how you get something to say. And, you know, don't shy away. And for the younger viewers, don't shy away from working a job.
Yeah,
you know, get the experience. You know, it's not going to stop you from developing as a musician, having to work the job.
Yeah, and you can, like Steve was saying before, you can have something that's relevant to like your passion. Like when it comes to like you could work in a music shop, you could like work at a record shop, you could like talk music, you can like breathe music, like play music, you could teach music. There's so many different things that you can do that can help facilitate you also, you know, being a musician.
You don't even have to do that. I would say.
I'm just saying as an example, like having it tied in there, but like, you know,
working with people. Yeah. If you work in a nursing home, you know, or you work in a hospital, you know, there's value in it. There's a lot of value in that, and you know, you are building a skill that still goes beyond your instrument. Music isn't just your fingers on the strings.
Yeah, and like for myself, like, you know, I have like engineering background. When I go to like conventions or I go to like any kind of like big meetup, you know, talking music is a great way to kind of bring people together because everybody has like an interest in that. Almost everybody has an interest in when it comes to music, whether they tried playing music or they just like certain artists, etc. And then like you start sharing stories and whatnot. And, you know, again, it'll bring people together.
Absolutely. I think that pretty much sums up this portion. So we did talk about the day gig and we talked about the gig triangle, which are two major elements, and they kind of go hand in hand because one facilitates the other.
Yep.
So now we come to the section that we like to call, it's awesome, but is it necessary? Sure, it's awesome, but is it necessary?
Right.
So I have two items here that I brought out that we can discuss.
Yep.
And I have several, but the ones I want to bring out today, I'm going to bring out two.
I think I know which two.
Well, it's going to actually be this one here.
Yep.
So this is This is my Groove Gear strap.
Yep.
So this is my favorite strap ever, and I've owned a lot of straps over the years, and I love this strap. It's got neoprene, it's super ultra wide, and of course I have strap locks on it. This strap is incredible. It's awesome, but is it necessary? So Sean, let's talk about this. So doing long gigs, what do you think?
Absolutely necessary. I actually have one just like it. I think mine's black, but yeah, like a little bit different strap connection points here.
And this one's a fairly new one.
Yeah, mine's a little bit older, but still, yeah, no, it's definitely necessary because, like we were talking about before, with like the 5-hour gig, 5-hour gigs, but like they do exist, everybody.
Yeah.
But like doing 3 hours or like maybe just get one break or something like that. That's a long time, and then like God forbid you do like a 2 a day, and like now you're doing 6 hours of gigging.
Yeah, you're moving in between, so even a light bass becomes heavy after a certain amount of time. And the way that the strap wears, and I mean, Groove Gear over the years has done a couple different iterations of straps where they disperse the weight across both shoulders. But I think they kind of, it doesn't need to be Groove Gear, but any company that makes a super wide strap to disperse the weight across your shoulder so it's not cutting in directly into one point, because over time, this can become painful.
Yeah, if you get one of those, like 2 or 3 inch wide nylon like straps that are like $16 from like your local music shop.
The first strap that everybody gets.
Yeah, it's like, but this one's got like cool like smiley faces on it or dollar signs.
It's checkered,
it's checkers. Yeah, you get something along those lines. Yeah, like after like an hour, you will feel it in your neck without a doubt. You will start feeling it. That 10-pound bass will start weighing like it's about 100 pounds.
Well, and that also brings us to making sure that your bass height is correct. And of course, there's a bunch of jokes with the bass being worn in different places. The Fusion Nerd with like all the other stuff, but having the proper height for your instrument is going to be super important. Not just with the wide strap and finding where the balance points are that are correct, but also making sure that you have the right height, because if you're doing that and you have a severe bend on your wrist, if you're playing up very high, over time that could create carpal tunnel issues. It's going to create your nerves could start to feel it after a while. Your hands get a little weird, and also even your left hand. So depending on the angle of your neck, where you're placing it, I always like to put my bass slightly towards my right hip, so it's actually out a little bit instead of straight across my chest.
Yeah.
But that also does depend on where my strap is. So a thick strap, I think we both agree that it is not only awesome, but it is also necessary.
For sure.
Necessary. Now I want to bring up something else. Now that was my personal strap. These are all personal things. So they are not sponsored by anybody, but these are things that I love, and Sean has some things that he loves that we'll dig more into, because he didn't bring them today.
I didn't bring them today. I didn't know you want me to bring all kinds of gadgets.
That's okay. Next time we'll do it. So the next one I want to bring up is this. This is called the Backbeat. The Backbeat, I've had this for about 5 or 6 years now. This is the original Backbeat, and it is basically it's a subwoofer pack that sits on your strap or on your belt. You can put it in your back pocket if you want to. But what it does do is I plug my bass in here, and then I have a line going out into my pedals and into my amp, and I can sometimes you play a gig, especially when you're playing dives or bars that aren't set up for sound.
Sure.
Which is most bars. They aren't set up for really great acoustics. And the bass being the bass, acoustics are already a problem, right?
Yes.
So what this does for me is it allows me to adjust the volume of my amp so I'm not blowing everybody out in front away. And I can turn down the volume to where it's acceptable, and then I still feel this. It vibrates with every note I play on my back while I'm playing it. Now, because I have this strap, Jay, just telling you out there, Jay, this doesn't fit on this, so I secure it to my belt on the back, and it works very well. So you feel it in your lower back.
Gotcha.
But it is awesome. Jay is from Groove Gear. I was just out shouting at him. Yeah. But these are excellent. Now, I think this is necessary. What are your thoughts?
For me, this is a cool gadget. And something that I think, if it would depend on the stage for me, because like I wouldn't see this as a necessity and like my typical bar gig or any even like outdoor gigs, because like outdoor gig I'm using a bigger amp, I can usually like push more air that way with a bit like just louder volume. As for like the bar gigs, there's gonna be like some where I can hear myself better, and then there's gonna be like gigantic like breweries that are all concrete and high ceilings, and like it just bounces around. You don't hear nothing, but like it's, to me, I'll move my amp to where it's more angled towards me, something along those lines.
Yeah, but
so I went.
The problem with the bass signal, though. Hold on. But the bass signal, bass wave is huge. So
yeah, I know. I understand that, but like if I know if I can hear it out there, then I don't necessarily need to have the best sound of it. I want to make sure that it's out there. So like for me, this is a really cool gadget. I would definitely be interested in using this on like a larger stage, like when I do like the Elvis tributes and stuff like that, because when I'm doing that, my amp sometimes is like farther away from me, and I don't have that push. I don't feel it.
Yeah.
And like that's something where it's like, okay, yeah, this would be beneficial for something like that. I don't think I would bring it with me on any other type of scenario. So for me, this would not be a necessity of owning, but I understand why you would do that.
So let me tell you the price on this too. So this is in the $400 range. So as
not necessary.
but as somebody who, working class, is it, compared to all the other stuff out there, when you think about the price of everything,
Sure, yeah.
Everything costs something. The reason that I feel that this is necessary is, again, low volume, or in a situation where you can kind of hear the bass, but sometimes that connection between feeling the bass as well as hearing the bass helps you to play better.
Yeah, and I think that, again, is going to be like a personal taste for what you want, and that's where you allocate your expenses. That's where you like, hey, this is important, so then I need to feel this, so then therefore this becomes a necessity. Just like how with the strap, that strap's probably like $120, and something along those lines, like that's an expensive strap. Absolutely it is, but it's also extremely necessary because everyone's got to wear one.
And it's gonna, long term, the strap will pay itself off.
Absolutely,
they last for years. I have several that I've had for like almost 10 years at this point. So it will pay itself off. Now, this will too. I mean, if you're using in-ears, and you're playing on a stage where you're using in-ears,
which I do,
or low volume, this comes in super handy, because then it's like there was a Taurus used to make, before I think they went out of business, but they used to make that flooring that you would stand on, feel the vibrations through it.
I remember that.
And that kind of is where they got started. And this is really great. So this is one unnecessary, one necessary. Okay. But again, to the taste of the user, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, especially even with anything. Any of these items that we bring up, these are just our personal opinions. I personally I like this on the gig, and I feel it does enhance my overall feel and timing sometimes, because if you can't hear the bass and you're relying on that, the acoustics of an electric bass can be a little rough. So
and then if you're using that with in-ears like you're talking about, to me it's about having a good set of in-ears to where like you're getting a good like bass driver like inside your head.
And then feeling it though. Yeah. I think there's definitely, for us bass players, we want to feel. There's a reason why Ampeg made the 810. There's a reason why there's an SVT. We want to feel the bass. And this is like, it just gives you that feel. So I am definitely a necessary on that one.
That's fine.
Awesome.
You can be that way.
I am. I'm necessary. That's necessary for me.
Okay.
All right. So I think that concludes our first trip here for working class zeros, and we hope that we get everybody. If you identify with what we're talking about, we'd love to hear from you. And if you have topics you'd like for us to address as well, we'd love to talk about that.
Sure.
So let's keep the dialogue happening, and we want to thank Bass Musician for having us on this, or letting us host this with them. And till the next time.
Yep. Take care, guys.
See you guys in a month.